But yeah, the next up is a really big topic. I don't know if Nathanius will come on for this, just for a call in or whatever. But the reason I brought this topic is because he had like an outcry, basically on his stream. He was very emotional, obviously after losing to Protoss all inning him all the time. But so he basically spoke out and said, "There's been a Protoss, or not a Protoss, a Blizzard Skype group with a lot of pros." And all these pros took a lot of their time to give criticism and feedback, and nothing of that was actually tested or added or implemented, and not even in a PTR or anything like that. And of course, Morrow was quick to jump on that bandwagon because he took a lot of time to write a lot of stuff, and then he never got as much as a reply from these people. So Mo, why don't you start by pouring your heart into this?
Yeah, but it kind of sucks. We got basically invited to this like pro chat where we were. I'm not gonna say what like we were supposed to do or stuff like that. So we basically had the option, you know, to give them feedback and join in conversations, talk about the balance or like whatever things. So me personally, I had quite some high expectations. Like I could basically give them feedback on some bugs or some things I would like changed, and then he would pass it on. Because it wasn't like David Kim is in the chat, so we're basically speaking through like middlemen, community managers, basically. So I would give them the feedback, and then he would be like, "Yeah, I'll pass this on to the like balance team or whatever." And then basically you never get the response back, and I write to him like 1 month later, like, "Hey, how did it go with in the meeting when you were supposed to talk to him and all that?" And just every time there was like new excuses, like I've been busy lately and so on. So my personal experience, obviously it's not like the same for everyone, I guess, but for me personally, I've had a terrible experience trying to, you know, talk to them quite a lot, you know, taking my time to review the new season ladder maps and explain to them what maps are good, what maps are bad, talking about Legacy of the Void patches and a bit like that, and just felt like I never got anything out of it coming back to me, like zero appreciation or anything, even acknowledgement. And I think the things I even said to him never even got to the balance team in the first place. So that's personally why I don't really feel like talking to Blizzard anymore about that. But you know, some people can say that I should have seen it coming, or I should have never had those kind of expectations to begin with. But like honestly, I think it would be a great idea for Blizzard to listen more to pro players and so on. So that's why when I first saw it, I'm like, oh yes, Blizzard is finally doing this. They're finally like gonna reach out, and there's gonna be like day-to-day talks with them and so on, or at least like week-to-week basis.
Hello? Okay. Skype lag for a little bit. Are we back? What?
I can hear you.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Yeah, so a lot of people are sad for you in the chat. One thing, though, that I'll say is that I don't think Nathanius was 100% right. I think it was during Season 1, you know, when we had Lil Cannon do his turtle thing for 4 hours before they nerf Swarmos. We actually, like, told them, like, yo, this cannot go on. Like, this is an actual real problem. And then Blizzard thought at first that it was like isolated incident, and that the Swarmos versus like when they nerfed the PDD and so on, they thought like, oh, you know, this doesn't happen often. This is just like a one-time thing. And then people told them, like Rhett and so on, they were like, no, this happens every game. The turtle mech terrans, they're cancerous to the game. And so they actually like got on that and they fixed that. But outside of that, it was It was really not productive. It was productive a little bit for the maps. We gave feedback on the maps, and then they had Google surveys, and then we filled out the surveys, and they got some feedback on that. But Nanny, you want to say something? It feels like you want to say something.
Oh, how could you feel that? I didn't say anything. Well, I actually tried to give feedback once to Blizzard when I was at. I played that tiebreaker against Revival at their headquarters,
Mm-hmm.
and I told them that the swarm host was a huge problem, and it's basically gonna be the new Broodlord, is what I told them. Which I think we can all agree it turned into exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, they told me that it's up to the tournament to fix it, not them to change the design of the unit. Like, they thought that if the swarm host prolonged the game to like a ridiculous amount, like an hour plus or whatever, it should be up to the tournament to decide who gets the win and stuff like this.
Before you go any further, can I ask you a question? Like, did you present the ideas into like this was a problem because it was like bad for the game, or this is a problem because it was bad for tournaments, or like did you tell them like, hey, listen, like this is ruining the TV show that we're all on, and then I play on like as the pro gamer, the star versus Revival. That was a 6 series, right? But like, are you saying like this is a problem for the viewers, or are you saying that this is a problem for the players, or how did you present that to them?
I presented it from both sides. I'm not the best at presenting it, but I carefully chose my words, since I think that's what your question was about.
You know,
I did try to do it in a professional manner. I wasn't like
I'm not trying to say
doing
professional. I'm just saying
or
like
whatever.
the response that
Oh
the response
yeah.
to the seems like totally
I
weird
get
to
what
me,
you mean.
right?
I came with it
That
from
sounds
both
really
angles
strange.
pretty much. I presented it first as a player, but also as a viewer. Like, if you're watching this, it will bore everybody out, and everybody will hate the game.
Sure.
Like,
'Cause,
you can't just have people being AFK for 1 hour and building spines and spores in the center of the map every single time. That in itself is a problem, right?
Because I
But
can't. I mean,
also, I tried to explain to them the concept of like free units and stuff. How that is also obviously a really stupid idea.
well, I can't think of like a single time a tournament has like decided to change like the way that the game ends based off of some like sort of arbitrary rule like this.
Well,
You know what I mean?
that's what David Kim told me, that his idea of the problem was that it's up to the tournament to fix it, and it's up to them to set the rules for what's okay or not, and not them to change the entire game, and etc. But yeah, that was 2 years ago, so that's all I remember 100%. I don't remember all the small details that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they didn't think it was a problem.
Yeah, it's so the segue of that Nathaniel's outcry and Morrow getting on that bandwagon segues into a post that Lelouch made on Reddit, which got an insane amount of upvotes, and his post wasn't so much about how to fix StarCraft, because he's done that 100 times before. It was to make comparison with Valve and Blizzard, and the difference between listening and quote listening quote. And I think one of the coolest thing to take away from that is that I think at almost every tournament there's like 2 or 3 developers from Valve that just goes there and they get feedback from the pros, like whatever weapon is OP at the moment, is the movement good, are the maps, like what kind of maps, is it the maps broken, is it two-sided, the recoil, so all those things, they just imagine if Blizzard actually did that in 2012, and at every fucking tournament players were like, yeah, so this thing called the Broodlord and the Infestor, yeah, it's happening every game. Like, I'm not playing StarCraft, I'm playing Broodlord and Infestor. Could you do something about that? Like, I think it's the difference is night and day, really. Mo, what are your thoughts? Like, how happy would you be if they were more open and they went to tournaments and they really listened to your feedback?
Yeah,
have been going to
oh,
tournaments though.
yeah, obviously I would be super happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like NaNiwa said, that they sometimes go around to different tournaments, but I've never heard of any of my and the programmers I know who have actually sat down and talked to David Kim about balance or
No,
stuff
there
like
have
that.
been people.
I know there's been a few people like Todd, for example, but in general, I don't think they do it very much, and I think it would be very good for the game because I think even though we're just just programmers, after all, most of us have been around since the Broodware days. Like even though we're not like esport, whatever, we don't have a job, we still like know how shit kind of works and how a game should look like and stuff like that. So I think we could give a lot of good feedback and so on, even though we haven't, studied how to design a game or whatever. So yeah, there's like a ton of us who actually wants to help because I think there's a lot of programmers who are like worried StarCraft 2 is gonna die, and there's a lot of programmers who just feel like they actually just want the game to be more fun to play. They don't want to sit and build fucking Broodlord Infestor for 2 years and then move over and start building Swarmhouse. like Sandster in our team property. Like he was just like, no, I'm not gonna build Swarmhouse. It's not fun. I know it's like super OP, but I'm not gonna do it. And then there was, sort of who didn't do that with the Broodlords basically. So they were like these different Zerg players who just try their best to find different playstyles to play just because they want to have more fun when they actually play the game all day long. So I think most of the pro gamers are not in it for, necessarily start winning a lot more or, abusing some new IMBA idea. It's just that we don't, we want to have fun with what we do. That's basically why we're pro gamers and why we don't have like Norba jobs, because we like playing games. But if we sit here and play, Swarmhouse practice all day long, it's not fun, and that's something that I don't think Blizzard. I think Blizzard don't quite see that perspective from us. Like they just think that we're biased and so on, and we want to win more tournaments and all that.
So there's obviously like a difference between like a great game and a perfectly balanced game, right? Like a perfectly balanced game isn't always the best game, right? Like I feel like even if you look back at like the old days of what people called GOM TVT, part of the best stories, even like the very first GSL, one of the best stories that even like Ortesis Artosis painted really well was like Fruit Dealer is the only Zerg that can beat Terran right now. Like no one else can beat Terran in this meta, in this world that we're living in. Like Terran is the strongest race, the best players are Terran, and Fruit Dealer proved that was he's like, not the case with me. I'm gonna win this tournament. And I feel like sometimes like the balance issues can create a great game, but when you have a game that's based upon like things that people don't want to watch, people don't want to watch it, and people don't want to play it, that's a problem, right? And I think that's what where the Stormhouse eventually got Blizzard to say like, okay, this is a problem. Like literally everyone is saying this is a problem. I can see this now. Maybe it's balanced, but it's not good, and we're gonna mess with it. And then that creates risks too, because then sometimes when you do something like this, now the meta has changed. In Korea specifically, a lot of Zergs are complaining, saying that they can't beat Protoss because they don't have their Swarmhouse anymore, and that Protoss can just mass bling Stalkers, and there's all this new sort of backlash. So Blizzard has to be like very careful. But I wish they would like spend more time like being more open to the community. My dream world is a bunch of ex-pros actually are on some like people who no longer play in tournaments and never will, and they like sign with Blizzard like, I will never play in tournaments again. They're like on a council that David Kim goes to, and they're like, you're playing the game, you're Grandmaster on like some barcode somewhere, but like you're not going to ever play in tournaments again, and you're going to be like your unbiased feedback, what you think about the game, because pros who obviously play in tournaments are going to have some bias, right? But I just wish there could be like this like unbiased like council of like even like 6 ex-pros that are like really good at the game still and can still play at GM level, even if it's only like GM NA. There's still going to be like knowledgeable people who are not biased at all, and it's like their job to just play the game and tell David Kim what they think. Because I feel like Blizzard says in internal testing all the time, but we don't really know the level of the players that are internal testing. We don't know what that means. So I mean that's like my 2 cents. I really wish we could have like some sort of like council of players that is completely unbiased, because Blizzard will obviously have to take some bias into account when they want to make these changes, because even if everyone's unhappy, the people who are complaining the most or the people who it affects the most negatively in every case, whether it's a fan who's playing the game or someone who's watching the game, like they want to see Protoss win because they're a Protoss fan even though they don't play. So bias is something that has to be taken into consideration a ton. In that group chat that you guys have, that pro chat, because I'm not actually involved in this chat. I've heard stories of this chat, but I don't know much about it. Do you guys feel like the feedback that's given is biased? Is there ever like somebody who goes in the chat and like rages, like I can't believe this is what's happening, or is it like unbiased feedback generally?
Well, there was a little bit of biased feedback. I remember specifically the Muslim taunting HuK to the point of HuK leaving the group. So some people will be more biased for their race or against their race, or well, no, for the race and against other races. HuK, are you okay?
Yeah, man.
My
I'm
man.
good. I was just like fucking rubbing my eyes.
Yeah.
In general, I've always been similar idea of what Wolf said is that you get like a few key. Like I never thought about hiring ex-pros because that's what they would basically have to do. I don't feel like any ex-pro is going to continue to play the game for no reason. You know, like StarCraft 2 is such an intense game to be like competitive. You have to play it a lot, and you know, most of us have played it for so many years. I feel like when I'm done with this game, I'm going to be done with this game. Like, there isn't going to be like, oh, I'm going to play it for 4 or 5 hours a day just for the lulz, you know? Mm-hmm. So I always was under the impression that you try to find the most unbiased pros possibly and then have that little group of, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 players, maybe like 2 or 3 from each race. Mm-hmm. I like Wolf's idea even more, but I don't know if Blizzard would be willing to cash out the money to do that. Because I feel like you would have to compensate those players. You're basically borrowing them from competing, but you still want them to be like at the level of competitive players. There needs to be some kind of compensation. But I agree, you need to either have Wolf's idea or my idea. And that's the best way to figure out balance issues. Yeah. And it's just shitty situations because RTSs in general, you're going to see that bias, unlike you're going to see that in, you know, CSGO or Dota 2 or League of Legends, Heroes, whatever, because they have so many heroes to pick from. But everybody identifies so strongly with their race that everybody's going to be biased to a certain degree, as we can see with Morrow, with his ghost.
But someone in chat said that David Kim always thinks about the viewer rather than the player, and then Wolf saying sometimes people don't want to see something or they don't want to play something, and I think the biggest example is the Swarmos, and I think maybe David Kim was swayed by the viewer count because the thing is a lot of people, like the more Swarmos game there were, the higher the viewer count would go up. But it's like reality TV, you know, you're watching a train wreck happen and you can't stop yourself like, this is so bad yet so good. But then when it came to playing the game, I know a lot of lower league players, they kept telling me, like, when I would coach or they would come on my stream, they're like, fucking Swarmos is disgusting. If I see someone make a Swarmos, I leave. Because they know, like, how fucking tiresome and lame the game became. It was a trench, and the game became very long. So, but, like, we've been a little bit negative. We've been, like, criticizing a lot. But to be fair, right now, I think the game is in a good place. Can everyone agree on that? Like, in Heart of the Swarm, the games have been good, and the things are going well, right?
You mean, like, in very recent times?
Yeah, like, let's say, like, last 2 months of games.
So like so basically since the Stormhouse got like removed from the game as we always joke, but I don't watch a lot of like outside of Korea games, but in Korea I feel like the games got better. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like the Stormhouse as it was before as a unit. We saw only one game, and I don't know if you guys have seen this. One game where someone used a flying locust upgrade. It was Rogue, and he won a game on I can't even remember what map it was. I think it was Deadwing. I'm drawing a blank right now. It was like literally there was only one game, right? And it was like pretty cool, and it was like, wow, this is exciting. This unit, this harassment base is exactly what Blizzard wanted. This is what they envisioned. But otherwise, like we see a lot more Blink Stalker micro versus like Roach armies and big engagements. And yeah, it seems like this ball of units moving, but it's better than the Protoss turtling trying to avoid the Swarmos. You see the Swarmos burrow, move up, and run away. This is my personal opinion, right? I thought the Swarmos was kind of it was problematic, and I actually started to learn more about this issue as I started to see people tweet, and I saw the Stefano, the Fire Cakes, you know, all these other games, and like you were saying, Desiree, the viewer count went so high during these games because it was such a controversial topic. The most viewership that was like ever in Pro League, which I think was like 30K, but besides the finals for Pro League, was when we had Reality versus Sulky, and there was like bunch of swarm hosts and a bunch of siege tanks and nobody could win, is because people like love to talk about that. It's like a reality TV show. But I'm glad that like StarCraft has moved beyond this point where like, the viewership rises based on the skill level and how good the story is, rather than like, "Law, look at the game is ruined, dead game." So I think the game is in a good place. This is my personal opinion from like the Korean side of things. I think it's much better to watch since they made that change like significantly. And I know that sort of strategy, that sort of turtling style, wasn't even as popular in Korea. So I'm really curious what you guys think from like the foreign side of things.
Yeah. Well, HuK, as someone who doesn't play much StarCraft anymore, do you think the game is really good right now?
Yeah, I mean, over time, it seems like the game's always been constantly improving, whether you look at it from like Wings of Liberty to HOTS to even more recent HOTS, and then hopefully what will happen in Legacy of the Void. I think the game's constantly improving, but I agree with the general sentiment that Blizzard, balance-wise, doesn't listen to pros enough. But that's such a difficult thing to do when every pro is so outspoken. Like you said, I left that group because, you know, the Muslim and some other fuckboy was basically trolling me. And it's a very annoying thing when you're trying to be unbiased as much as possible. Like, everybody's biased, obviously, but you're trying really hard to be unbiased. And then you have someone just like, you know, that's not going to be, whether they're trolling or not, you know, it doesn't really matter. But there are tons of pros that kind of do walk that line and are pretty good about it. And then there's tons of pros that like literally just want the best thing for their race. And that opinion doesn't change. So no, like, it doesn't matter if David Kim talks to every single pro, you know, there's going to be a good percentage of them that are absolutely wrong, and they're not going to have good opinions at all. And there's going to be a good amount of them that do actually have good opinions. But like weeding through that and knowing like, okay, we should listen to him, we shouldn't listen to him, showing that bias even towards players, it's just, it opens a lot of problems, not only, you know, just balancing the game and knowing, but like in a PR way, in a corporate way, taking sides. So, I mean, they do listen to community feedback. I've sat in on a lot of their meetings and talked to like a few of the devs and, you know, different people at Blizzard. They're trying. They aren't, but their approach, I agree, is wrong. I would love for them to do Wolf's idea, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they are willing to, you know, dish out the money it would cost to hire people to do that. So the other option being mine, I would love for them to get, you know, 6, 7, 8 pro players that are willing to give back feedback, because that's a lot of work. I know we were talking about that earlier as well. Morrow writing, you know, a good amount to them. That's the worst feeling, when you put your like heart and soul into something and then you just feel like, why did I spend, you know, 5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever, into making this post when my time is valuable? I get nothing back monetarily, but on top of that, it doesn't even impact any decision. Yeah. So I feel like their approach needs to change. Yeah. But there is effort there.
On this note, right? Like, I wanted to talk about this earlier, and I know I'm kind of ranting tonight. I'm going off because like I've been wanting to talk about this stuff a lot. This is the kind of thing is like, I don't have a channel to like spout these sort of thoughts when I'm commentating, because I'm trying to be professional and commentate the game. But I want to ask you, Morrow, like, have you ever spoken? Do you have like a direct channel to David Kim? Have you ever talked to him like one-on-one? Have you ever been able to like reach out to the guy? Could you like email him? Do you ever talk to him? Like, are you guys close at all?
No, I have never talked to him. The closest contact I've had with him was me and the Maga writing like a mail to David Kim, because there was like a mail address that was apparently David Kim's. So we wrote like Hydra too low DPS, and like we're trolling him because we were like dying so hard to Protoss, and that was years ago. Most recently, I was trying to get in contact with David Kim, so I was asking Todd, but that was not for balance. It was for that I wanted to get an emote, Twitch emote of David Kim, but not even that, man. Like, that guy is untouchable.
Well, I've been told a few StarCraft players have him on Facebook, but he doesn't have Skype yet, and they've been trying to get him over to Skype, but he's never been part of the pro player channel.
That's the reason why I asked, because he talks to me fairly regularly on Facebook, and he asked me my opinion, right? And he also like asked my opinion on like what I think like the pros are saying, but also like what I think the fans are saying and what's going on in Korea. And David Kim's obviously Korean, and he knows the Korean scene really well. And actually, like literally everyone in Korea knows him and talks to him fairly regularly. But he asks me my opinion every now and then. Well, I feel like my feedback's not as valuable as say any of you guys, right? The four of you guys are all pros, or at some point like very high level players. In Chris's case, he's like changed roles a little bit, but like obviously the guy who's still really really good.
They're trolling. Don't give them more ammunition.
All right. I'm sorry. But anyway, all I'm saying is like he talks to me, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like the reason why maybe he doesn't talk to you, Morrow, is because he doesn't know that like you really want to talk to him. And maybe I don't know who these guys are in the pro chat, but maybe they're not delivering the message. Like maybe it's not getting through. And that makes me really sad.
It feels like we're trying to set up a date here or something. It's not just me I'm talking about. I'm talking about like take a pro gamer in general. It's hard to fucking contact the guy.
Sure. But I mean, all I'm saying is like I listened to like your story, right? And I was under the impression that like Blizzard until all this came out with Nathaniel's post was I actually watched all of his VOD, where he was like killing some Zerg player ranting the whole time. I'm assuming that's the one you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
I watched this VOD and he talked about this pro chat, and I was under the assumption that like that chat was like super exclusive and only pros were there and it was like direct contact to the balance team and stuff. But it turns out that like it seems like maybe the messages are not, not really that well. They're just not conveyed that well. Everyone's busy. I know the StarCraft team is like a fairly small team compared to some of the other teams that Blizzard has. Like look at World of Warcraft, for example. That's like a massive game. It's not an esport really compared to StarCraft, but it is massive, and they have like a ton of people working on that all the time. I feel like if possible, it'd be good for all of you guys to try to make some sort of connection with David Kim and talk to him. Like, don't spam him and don't like get into his personal life and stuff. But like, just.
But I find it very hard. I find it very hard that he would be talking to different pro gamers, because how could you ever come up with the idea that Medevacs should be stronger in Legacy of the Void? Every single programmer thinks that's a joke who I've talked to.
Well,
including Tyrant players.
It's a problem when their own race is like, dude, they don't need it.
Like you think they got their shit under control with some of the patch notes, and then you're looking through the patch notes, you're like, oh, Ghost movement speed buff, that's nice, it makes sense. But then when you see this, like some of these patch notes are they make absolutely no sense at all with like the medevac dropping. Like, how could any pro gamer think that you need to like be able to drop more when the best Terran in the world, Morrow Prime, is basically dropping all the time in every matchup?
Well,
like, how could he be talking to pro gamers if he makes a patch like that?
Well, here's what I think needs to happen. In 2013, that was like the last time David Kim went on a show with Shenman, Suppi, Zeno, Todd, Katz. I don't think it went very well. They obviously have a lot of ego, and they obviously have a vision that maybe not the pro players share, but I think like a private forum or a Skype group where like they try to pre-approve or like brainstorm like a patch note before going live with it would really go a long way, because no Terrans in their right mind would have approved that, like you said, Mo. So I think like the discussion needs to be in private, and it needs to be open communication, because what happened with the recent Skype group is that it was the community managers would like tally up the feedback, and then they would go in a meeting and like fight for us, and they'd be like, so the pros are thinking this, and they say this is because of this and that and this and that, and like Nathaniel said, nothing happened, and I guess they didn't win many battles because it's really hard to convince the developers on how to change the game. So hopefully they open a good communication channel with the pros moving forward. Nani, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm just like so jealous. Like all the people in this chat, like wasn't even allowed, man.
Yeah.
Nathaniel and you guys.
Yeah. Well, you came late to the. You came back late to the party.
I don't think you were playing at the time.
I was.
Oh. Okay, well then.
I actually
Get
asked
fucked, I guess, huh?
I fucking asked this guy if he wanted to be the channel though. It's like, no, we'll let Nathanias
Wow.
balance the gamers. We'll leave the balance to the casters.
That's how it's always been.
I would
I
really
remember
love-
in Korea they said like Kalmor was like asked for balance and stuff.
Yeah.
I would really like.
That was the
if
name I
you look at
said.
Very. Is this,
For like,
is this this?
Let Morrow speak.
I talk
Go
too
ahead,
much.
Wolf. You go.
I'm just
Okay,
like
go ahead.
I'm going back to like the Chan Man show type topic.
Mhm.
If you guys have noticed like any show that any Blizzard employees have ever been on, like ever, from like Turn 2 for Hearthstone, that Doa and Artosis were doing for a while, to any sort of StarCraft show, like they have like certain PR rules they have to follow, right? So usually you notice they're only allowed to talk for like 15 to 30 minutes or something like that. In most cases, it's just because like it limits the amount of like wrong that could ever happen, right? Imagine David Kim is like the face of the balance team for StarCraft, gets asked some sort of awkward question, he can't really respond to it, and like the community backlash that goes into this. So I totally understand like the lack of response publicly, but I was actually under the understanding until very recently that like there was a lot more discussion going on with the pro gamers, and I was just always like understanding that like they were listening to you guys a lot more. And so when some of these changes came up that were kind of strange, I was like, well, I guess I just don't really get it. I guess the pro gamers are like knowing about this more than me. But it's really interesting to find out that in fact actually you guys don't necessarily agree with the changes either, and like there seems to be like some sort of lack of communication, which I think is kind of like a bit of an issue. Like how can we solve it? Like I feel like a lot of people are complaining about it, but like can we solve this?
The biggest problem is that they have, and you're gonna have to listen to these church bells in the background. I'm sorry, but 6 o'clock they always hit. They're like desRow was saying, that the tunnel is right now is you have this big group of pro gamers, right, and then it has to go through the community reps, and the community reps choose like, all right, most people in the group agreed with this idea and they want to see this happen or that, and then they go and they fight for it, and sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but there's no pro gamer direct to devs connection besides like maybe David Kim talks to the Koreans on Facebook or whatever. What needs to happen is they need to get a very small amount of players from each race, and then just have them give input, and it be direct from player to devs. And if those players want to get the opinions of their race, like let's say they nominate Snoot, and then they say, you know what, Snoot, you're going to be one of the representatives for the Zerg side, and if you want to talk to, you want to create a Skype group with a bunch of Zerg players and discuss your issues, do that, and then, come back and, have that direct line between Snoot and David Kim, or Terran have it, be Thermal or Bunny or whomever, and, Protoss, same kind of situation. But picking those key people and Blizzard actually doing that that's what I would like to see. I think that is the best way to balance the game.
I don't want to play a game where Snoot is balancing Zerg.
Well, whoever.
Damn, the Swarmhosts are back, guys.
Whoever. I don't think Snoot necessarily thought Swarm hosts were a good thing. You could use TLO. You could use numerous players. It's just about finding the most.
That wouldn't work, I feel, as well.
I think it would work better than the one we currently have. The best one, ideally, ex-pros. You hire them, they give feedback. But will that happen? I don't think that's going to happen. So I think this is the best solution to the problem we have now.
What I think is that, like, as soon as you group up, like, different races in the same Skype call or whatever, in the same discussion, people automatically get less biased. So let's say you have, like, a Terran, like Flash, talking directly to David Kim. I think he will end up coming off more biased compared to, like, David Kim Skyping up with KT Roadster, and then he could be talking to live Flash and like those guys at the same time, and they are basically practice partners. So it's they share a lot of the same opinions about build orders and how to counter them and so on, and probably about the balance of the game as well to some extent. So I think that would make a lot of sense if he were to like aim at like a practice group that usually play together, because they usually think about the same, and they tend to be less unbiased per se compared to like a guy who just sits and plays on like ladder all day long. And I think that could be would be very good. But then again, like I have no idea what's going on in Korea and how much David Kim talks to them and whatever. But what's important to me is to know that he actually talks to the Koreans, like the Korean pro gamers, because they are actually the ones that knows what's up and so on with the balance.
Koreans are even more biased than Western players. That's always been known. If you ask David Kim himself, he would say that Koreans are more biased than foreign players are. So if you think like us getting into a group and discussing it is bad, Koreans would be that much worse.
I don't think it's necessarily like.
Well, David Kim himself said that that was true. So
it's absolutely true.
I always end up less biased when I'm talking to like sort of about.
Okay, but your point is Koreans would be best
Terra
at this.
versus Sergens and so on. So I think when you have like a practice group and them talking together with someone, it becomes a good discussion compared to like just talking alone or like me fucking laddering for 1 week without talking to any Serg player. Then I could like have a bad mindset against Serg and so on. But yeah. Maybe you're right that they're like more biased and so on. Again, I don't know how the Koreans are.
I mean, I don't speak Korean and I haven't sat in KT Roaster's house, but the only evidence I have is what David Kim said, and he said they are more biased.
David Kim makes like pretty regular trips to Korea for one reason or another. Sometimes he speaks at like GSL finals or something. Sometimes you guys don't even see the things he speaks at because they're like only on the Korean stream and stuff like that. But he comes to Korea like every now and then, and I've talked to him there several times. I know he's met up with a ton of pro gamers, and he's told me, you know, specific circumstances where like players are like, you know, just saying like, hey, you got to fix this, and then, you know, arguments break out. Not like fights or anything like that, but like everyone's like arguing, you know, maybe something similar to like what happened in your pro chat, right? It's a kind of common occurrence, and Koreans are pretty biased, but what I find when I give a suggestion to David Kim, if he doesn't like it, like he won't just be like, he won't ignore me. Or he won't say like, no, I just don't really think so. He'll be like, oh, really? Because here's what I was thinking. And he like always like really like very, very in depth. Like it's never just like, he's like, do you think, you know, he's like, what do you think is going on with Zerg versus Terran? Zerg's having some trouble in the past few months. I'm like, oh, a lot of people seem to be thinking like 3-3 upgrades might need to be moved to like Infestor tech instead of Hive tech. And he'll just be like, well, I don't think that's a problem. Like, you know, we've had 2-2 upgrades versus 3-3 Terran upgrades for years, and things have changed recently, you know, so I don't think that's really what's going on. And he'll actually, you know, have a conversation with me about it, right? So, like, I think he's very calm to have a discussion, so to have a one-on-one with him, if you're, like, super biased, I think he'll just, like, call you out on it. I don't think he's gonna be like, I don't think he's gonna, like, shut down and be like, oh, I can't listen to this is too biased, or then go, like, you know, or completely listen and then get mixed feedback as a result. So, I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is like, I don't feel like David Kim is the type of person to listen to Korean insane bias and like either completely shut it out or to like get like overwhelmed by it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to be like, oh god, all Koreans are too biased, I don't want to listen to them. He's actually like has an open discussion with him when he talks to. At least that's my experience talking to him, and my experience with other casters and pros I've talked to who've talked to him like in a direct channel. I can't speak for the Skype chat, that like, you know, the pro chat.
All right, well guys, we